What's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith at GSD Studios, and welcome to another Jim and Jay show. So who the hell are Jim and Jay? Jim and Jay are my personal health, fitness, nutrition, biohacking, overall life optimization mentors. These are by far the two biggest badasses that I've ever met in this space. I don't know anybody when it comes to these topics, you guys, that's more knowledgeable. So we created this show for our GSD mode listeners to have an opportunity to go out there and submit your questions here to the show. If you have any questions you want answered on the show, shoot us an email at JimAndJay@gsdmode.com, and we will do our best to answer all your questions here live on the show. Also, real quick, want to plug our sponsor that makes this show possible is www.checkd.com/TRT Revolution. So on the show, Jim, Jay, and I talk a lot about getting your blood work done, checking all your different levels, your hormone levels, making sure that your body is operating at its most optimal self, right? So that is the company that Jim, Jay, and myself all use. So again, www.checkd.com/TRT Revolution. So let's jump on into the show. What's up, our peeps? Joshua Smith here with another episode of the Ask Jim and Jay show. Every single week we do a podcast where you guys can ask all your health, fitness, nutrition, energy, overall biohacking questions here on the show. I bring on my personal mentors, my health, fitness, energy management, and overall life ass-kicking mentors on the show to answer your questions here live. We got a dozen questions for tonight, man. We been getting a lot of great questions, so we got a lot of great questions to jump in tonight. So with that being said, you guys, we will get started right away. So we got so much to cover. You guys rock and roll. You ready to rock and roll?
Let's do this.
Fired up, man. Fired up.
Right on. Okay, so question number one. So this is a long question. It's a diet question, but so I'll just kind of lay it all out, and then you can start attacking it. So okay, I'm a 38-year-old male, 5'10", who not that long ago was super overweight. I was 255 pounds, definitely endomorph and sensitive to carbs. I'm still overweight today, but I've lost 51 pounds in the last 140 days, so I've improved over the last 4.5 months. I'm basically on a low-carb, low-calorie diet, doing cardio on the elliptical in my garage 3 to 4 times a week for 30 minutes, and minimal weight training with dumbbells, squats, push-ups, etc. at home 2 times per week. My question is about my diet. Here's basically my boring diet I pretty much eat every single day. So breakfast, 1/3 cup uncooked oatmeal mixed with a scoop of whey protein powder, 25 grams. Mid-morning snack, 6 ounces of 0% Greek yogurt. Lunch, 4 ounces of chicken breasts, cup of raw baby carrots, cup of other veggies. Mid-afternoon, 2 pieces of string cheese. So you got some dairy rocking. Dinner, 4 ounces of meat, veggies. Calculating with my fitness pal, it's about 1,300 to 1,400 calories a day, about 90 grams of carbs, 50 grams of fat, 125 grams of protein. Understand? You guys is that making sense, or am I just blabbing too much here?
No, it makes sense.
Okay.
I'm following along with that email.
Okay. So I understand there are a lot of variables with goals, but I'm just a regular guy, a realtor with a wife, 2 young sons that wants to feel comfortable taking my shirt off. Maybe want to get down to 185 pounds, so another 18 pounds to go. So I still have, I'm not really interested in getting down to 6% body fat, but around 12% would be awesome. What are your thoughts on my diet at first glance? What do you think I need to tweak?
Let me go first, Jim. So first off, his diet, he's way under eating calories, okay? He said he was 255 pounds. He's lost 51 pounds. First off, congratulations. To this guy, to the gentleman that wrote this email, because that's an amazing accomplishment. You should be applauded or lauded and applauded. However, right now you have set yourself up metabolically to malfunction because your caloric intake at 201 pounds is way too low. I mean, 1,300 calories, that's like starvation. Like you're not even eating. So first things first, and then looking at his diet, and I'm going from memory right now what you just told us, Josh, but he's not eating enough protein. He's definitely not getting enough fat and protein. So he's obviously endomorphic, right? So we're trying to make sure he maintains an insulin-controlled lifestyle. So he has to minimize his carb consumption. So where his increase in calories needs to come from is protein and fat. And I'll let Jim talk about the types of fat and whatnot. But the only other thing I'll mention is he's not doing enough weight training. Okay. He's doing a lot of cardio. So let's look at what this guy's doing to himself and where this is going to go in the big picture. Okay. He is massively under eating, which, as we all know, and we've talked about this on the show, is going to lead to thyroid destruction. It's going to lead to a metabolic slowdown, if not shutdown. I mean, right now, remember, if the minimum is 10 calories per pound, he's right now 700 below minimum calories per pound that he should be eating a day to lose body fat. So he's literally on a starvation diet right now, which has allowed him to lose 51 pounds. But eventually the starvation diet completely, self-destructs and reverses because his thyroid metabolism will slow to a crawl, if anything. And then also because he's not building enough muscle, which he's doing a lot of cardio, he's going to slow down his metabolism from not having enough muscle. Because remember, muscle is the ultimate metabolic furnace. The more muscle you have, the more efficient you are burning calories at rest while you're just sitting there. So the two things he needs to do is he needs to increase his protein, increase his fat. I'll let Jim talk about the types of food and protein he probably should change, because I looked at that diet and he's definitely off a little bit. He's eating like string cheese, dairy, and stuff. And then he definitely has to somehow make it become intentional about his weight training. 2 days a week of weight training is not enough. And I think he said he's doing push-ups in his house. He needs to go to the gym and do a real, training program where he hits his body over 4 or 5 days, hopefully at least 3 days a week. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. Hey, Rob. Congratulations, man. Outstanding effort thus far, losing the body fat. You took the first and hardest step, man. So congratulations on that.
For sure.
And I'm reading through your email, and it says, I've heard you guys say if you're fat or trying to lose fat, you should eat fruit or dairy. But then that I said meat and vegetables make your dreams come true. Well, if you're fat or trying to lose fat, you should not eat fruit or dairy. Thus, backed up by my statement, meat and vegetables will make your dream come true. But that said, I agree with, of course, what Jay said. What'll happen eventually, I totally agree, is you'll keep losing body weight. I don't know, probably a little bit of muscle and more fat, and then you're going to crash just because you're so underfed. Right. I don't know how long that would happen, how long it would take to happen, but I can guarantee it would happen. So to kind of avoid that, man, I would up your calories a little bit, slightly. I would try maybe 300 calories, which would get you up into the 1,800 a day range. And hang there for a while, probably 2 weeks, and see if you're still losing fat. That would be kind of my first adjustment. Second thing, just looking over at food choices, I'll start with the uncooked oatmeal and a scoop of whey protein powder. Fantastic idea. The only thing that I would add to that is a little bit of fat. And so some of the calories, as Jay said before, the calories that you're going to add in are probably going to be, you're going to benefit most if it's from fat and protein. So I would add like a tablespoon of almond butter to that meal. And anytime that you eat whey protein, especially if you're not, your main goal isn't to gain muscle. If you're eating whey protein powder mixed in anything, you want to have some fat with it. And we can get into that later. That's a little bit deeper story, but I would just add a little bit of fat to that first meal. Second, mid-morning snack, 6 ounces of Greek yogurt. The only thing I like about Greek yogurt is it has probiotics in it, but you can get that from a variety of other sources such as sauerkraut or kimchi, even kombucha tea. The Greek yogurt is okay because it has a little protein. Usually, unless you're buying fat-free, it has fat in it, but I don't recommend that you eat any dairy products, man. And a much better substitute meal for that, snack-wise, would be like 2 hard-boiled eggs and almost anything. Throw in some vegetables, hard-boiled eggs, and a couple slices of Canadian bacon. Or if you can just do it, like 2 or 3 hard-boiled eggs would be perfect. The lunch that I like a lot, 4 ounces of chicken breast and vegetables, perfect. Mid-afternoon snack, 2 pieces of string cheese. Again, not horrible, but you can definitely make better choices there. String cheese, it depends on the cheese, and there's a whole story about that, but it's probably not. Yeah, it's probably not a high quality cheese from a grass-fed animal. And so I would get rid of that, man, when it comes down to it, and I would replace it with either another lunch or dinner meal like you have if you can, another 4 ounces of meat and vegetables, or you can do another egg snack. You can even do a whey protein with fat in it again. Anything to get rid of that. Again, it's better than eating fruit, but we're talking about you ask us what we would do and what better choices would be. Dinner is fine. I like that. 4 ounces of meat with the veggies. So just in closing, man, I would reiterate what Jay said about lifting weights. If you can, or if you have the time or the availability to go to the gym and at least start doing a circuit machine, and not with the goal of becoming a bodybuilder or growing muscle, but you're going to have to fight to keep muscle on, especially if you want to lose that body fat, because there's going to come a time, I don't know when it will be, but your body's going to start holding on to the fat. And when it does, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. One of the things that typically happens when people get stuck like that is they lower their calories more or they up their cardio. And the continued weight loss that you have comes from a majority of muscle that you have left. So we don't want to see that happen. If you can, you get to the gym and start doing, like, it doesn't even have to be anything big. You pick out the machines, you can kind of do a full body workout. It'll take you 20 minutes, maybe 30 at the max. That would be fantastic, but I would start by upping your calories again by about 300 a day, 300 to 400, so you're closer to 17 or 1800 calories a day. Those additional calories should come from mostly protein and fat.
So I got 2 quick questions there. With his portions, because you guys were saying he's okay with the portions, but he's at 4 ounces. I mean, how's he going to get more protein? Would he need to increase those? Would you recommend going to 6 or 8 ounces, adding maybe another meal right before bed to increase? Because he's got to get that more protein in there. And then what about the carbs? Because he's at 90 grams of carbs a day. Is that too much?
So, Jim, go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
There's a couple ways you could do it, Josh. So if he's going to replace that mid-morning snack and mid-afternoon snack with, say, 2 to 3 hard-boiled eggs, or it would be better to 3 hard-boiled eggs, or he repeats his lunch or dinner meal with another 4 ounces of whatever meat and veggies, that would be ideal. So Rob, if I could give you some advice that you would follow, like, to the T, I would say tablespoon of almond butter with your breakfast. Mid-morning snack is either going to be a lunch or 3 or 4 hard-boiled eggs. Then lunch the same. Mid-afternoon snack is going to be 4 or 5 ounces of chicken breast, again, a repeat of your lunch, and then dinner the same. When you calculate up those calories, if it's still not at 1800, then I would up the ounces of meat with those meals to 5 and do the math, and then 6 if you needed it to get you to 1800.
Well, one other thing too that you could easily do that I don't know why you're not thinking about this is I don't like his meat quality. He needs more fat in his meat. Okay, that's gonna like a grass-fed beef. I mean, he's eating chicken and stuff like that and fish, and as we know, that's great protein, but there's no fat in it, and he's already nutrient deficient and nutrient dense deficient. So he needs more fat, and that's going to be the most simplest solution rather than him like adding other things. So he should consider doing the grass-fed beef. Or I mean, really, that's it, right? I mean, there's no other people.
Well, for dinner, he says he eats steak or pork, so I'm not really sure.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean,
yeah, I didn't read that, Jay. That's my fault. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, no, it's okay, but Jim's right then. So basically, those 2 meals, he needs to replace them with a higher density, a more dense fat and protein meat.
What about
well, and I don't know either. Sorry, Josh, I don't know either if his veggies are steamed or if they're sautéed. If they're sautéed, hopefully you're using an olive oil or avocado oil, and that would certainly up your fat calories.
I mean, it doesn't sound like he's doing that, dude, because if he's at 13 or 1400 calories.
I agree. Yeah.
He's not doing that. So, I mean.
So Rob, that's another way to add in an additional high-quality fat source. It's using olive oil or avocado oil. And you don't have to cook your vegetables in it. You could steam them the way you are and then just sprinkle a little bit on top.
Jim, what about MCT oil?
Dude. You should just drink motor oil.
No, but seriously, Josh, I think you wanted to add another point.
Yeah, well, just a question.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say when you because he doesn't talk about any supplements that he's taking in addition to the additional protein. I mean, and I know we have a full episode on all your guys' favorite supplements, but when we're looking at a low calorie diet, is there anything like, dude, you got to be taking, things that we always talk about, like your omega-3s, some of the CoQ10, some of the different things that you talk about that in case he's not taking when he's at this extreme, like, dude, you need to be taking these. Any recommendations there?
He does. I mean, I'll let Jim say that. I just want to just add this in because it's really important for Rob. And again, kudos. And I don't think we've talked about this. And this is an issue that a lot of women deal with, but Rob is a perfect example of us to bring this conversation up. But Rob is in danger zone right now. Okay. Because Rob has lost a lot of weight, massively under eating. So my guess is, and kind of Jim alluded to it, he's probably lost muscle weight. Okay. And, as Jim said, we can't make a prediction of when it's going to shut down. But at some point, if he does not up his calories like radically, and again, he's the guy that's got to be super concerned and focused on making sure it's coming from protein and fat and not carbs, right? Because he's obviously extremely insulin resistant, or was at 258. So he's got to be really cautious now that when he adds calories back in, they're coming from protein and fat, again, to keep his insulin under control. But he's got to do it right away. So, I'll let Jim answer the question. But yeah, I mean, he's in a high risk zone right now. So hopefully he hears this right away, or we reach out to him and send him an email and tell him to reach out to us. But he needs to increase his calories and do it fast, because Josh, it's what we didn't talk about. When you do reach metabolic shutdown, then it's literally disaster. Because then at that point, your body literally just shuts down completely metabolically, and any food that you give it, your body will start storing body fat, because the body all of a sudden seems like it's in a fight or flight preservation mode, and it just starts storing body fat like it needs to for to survive. So it's a horrible situation. A lot of women go into this with thyroid disorder, and they balloon. It's like a really terrible situation. So, we're not trying to scare him, but we want him to make sure to know that he has to increase his calories. He has to do it right away.
Yeah, Josh. So to answer your question, I would, again, Jay's right, but eventually you're going to crash if you keep the course. So I would up the calories again by 300, stay that course for 2 to 3 weeks, see how your body responds, and then adjust accordingly. As far as supplements, when you lose body fat, so as we talked about before, and I know it's been a couple times, but your body stores toxins, all the toxins that you eat and all the toxins that you're exposed to that your body can't dump off through respiration, urination, and sweat, all get stored in body fat. And so when you're losing a massive amount of body fat like that, you're getting bombarded by toxins. And so one thing that I want to mention is I hope that you're drinking a boatload of water, man, because you need to keep your system, I don't want to say flushing, but you want to keep yourself full of water and hydrated so that you have a way to get rid of those toxins, right? So that's important. The antioxidants, of course, that we talk about, CoQ10, definitely omega-3, because vascular inflammation, cardiovascular health. Curcumin would be an excellent addition, if alone, just for its antioxidant properties. Other than that, I mean, yeah, we have that list, but those are the things that I think are the absolute most important. And then, pending your blood work, I would adjust vitamin D.
Yep. Awesome. All right, so next question. Was watching a program on public TV a couple nights ago, had a doctor on discussing nutrition, fat loss, low carbs, good fats, and weight loss. The one thing I never hear any of these doctors mention is metformin. Is there any reason why they won't discuss it?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I'll start with that. It depends on if you're a conspiracy guy or not, but I'll try to. I think the main reason why metformin isn't passed out to the public and given out for free like Tic Tacs is because it's not in the best interest of pharma. And it's not in the best interest of all the corporations that unfortunately dictate everything that we do in this country, such as our food sources, and to what our beliefs are about food and nutrition. Metformin is an incredible medication. Most of the data that's on metformin, however, is from sick people. It's a sick population. And so when you look at the data at a very high level and a glance over, like a physician would that's not familiar with the medication or deals with those patients, he would see the data from sick patients. And I think that's what they get the high level feeling of. And then I think it's just an overall feeling that they get and they don't want to deal with it. Now, the physicians that are familiar with it and have done the research and poured the time in to go through all that, go through how it actually affects healthy people, how it affects sick patients or diabetic patients who actually change their lifestyle and diet along with it, then it becomes a very safe, incredible medication.
Right.
And the reason why you don't hear about the great things about it is because there's no money to be made on it.
Right.
So pharmaceutical companies and doctors and reps and lobbyists and everybody else isn't going to get the message out to you to take this medication because the copay is free or $5. And it will save your life and I think make your quality of life better whatever years you have left. There's literally no money behind it. So what they will push are all the new drugs that are supposed to be better and more effective than metformin that cost a lot. So those are the ones that you see on TV, you see the commercials that the doctors are being bombarded by reps, and those are the ones that they think are most effective because they don't really spend the time to go back. It's not in their best interest unless, again, they're familiar with it, they've had patients on it, and they're building this population where they have a practice-based knowledge. So I wouldn't expect to hear, your general physician talk to you about metformin. But I wouldn't even be surprised if you've heard about metformin or you see it on an anti-aging article or if you've heard us talk about it. If you go into your general physician or general practice physician and him say, well, that's for diabetic people. Because it's in not fault of their own, but it's kind of out of their scope of practice unless they deal with it. And if they are dealing with it now, it's usually with very, very sick people. And the response that they have from their sick population isn't great because it just slows down the train wreck that's coming. Because most of those people don't say, okay, man, I got the sugars, I got the diabetes coming on, I'm going to cut out, I'm going to change my lifestyle, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to lead a low insulin lifestyle. No, they just pop pills with the regular stuff they're doing and it doesn't really change. So
I got to give Jim a lot of props. He sounds like a guy that actually works in the medical industry and doesn't want to piss off, a few of his clients, but I'll go the opposite route. I mean, first off, everything that Jim said is perfectly apt and exactly right. I'll just say this for the folks listening: go to lifeextension.org and just search metformin, and you literally will get more than 150 articles, all research that's been performed in the last 10 years about the efficacy of metformin as a life extension medication. Okay. So the fact that the research is out there and it's in mass, and again, I've written prolifically about it. Dr. Osborne's written prolifically about it. Jim and I talk about it. We've talked about it on the show. Josh uses it. I use it. And all of our friends that are interested in maximizing human performance are on it. I mean, it's truly, to me at this point, it is a conspiracy, okay? Because the fact that doctors, as Jim said, are not scripting this like Tic Tacs to people. Look at all the old people in society today not on metformin who are on diabetic medications. It's like I look at Monica's dad, who's never taken metformin at all. He's got atherosclerosis diagnosis. He's on 20, blank pills a day, color coded for times, and he's never used metformin. And I'm like, what is going on? I mean, what are these physicians doing? But again, Jim hit the nail on the head. Metformin is free. If you don't even have insurance and you go buy metformin, somebody scripts you metformin and you go buy it at a Publix or a Target or Walmart or CVS or Walgreens, it's literally like $2 for a 30-day supply at 2 grams a day, AM, PM, 1,000 milligrams. So, it's like there's no profit margin. The pharmaceutical companies are not going to push it. The doctors make no money on it. So it's loathsome to me to think about this, to continue to go down this pathway. And then we see, and I won't mention names, but they know who they are. There's doctors out there that are working in age management and medicine, from a standpoint of anti-aging, hormonal optimization, whatever, and they won't script it either. And when you ask them, why are you not scripting it? Well, it's a diabetes medication, or, they don't have the A1C level to qualify, even though they're like 0.1 away from being pre-diabetic. Josh, it's crazy, dude. Honestly, it blows me away that not everybody is on this medication, man.
Jay, let me make this point, man. So if you walk into a grocery store, what are the best things in that whole store for you, right? They're the lowest margin items that the store sells. Right. It's literally meat and vegetables, and they're on the outsides of the store, right? And so everything else in that store has been researched. There's been millions and millions of dollars dumped into catching your eye, having you taste the thing, and being addicted to it. And so when you take like a Pringles or a chip, All right. You look at the coloring. I mean, that the marketing that's gone into just the label and the coloring and the placement of that on the shelf is ridiculous. And the engineering that goes into the potato chip, you think that they've made that potato chip and said, wow, man, we want to put good whole ingredients in there and make it good for Susie and Bobby. No, it's whatever. There's
proprietary blend.
No holds barred on how to make that thing that looks like a potato chip be addictive and such an attractive taste, a crunch. I mean, that's been studied extensively. It's a product. It's a produced, engineered product to make you want more.
Right.
It's not food. It's a marketed product. It's a very expensively researched, highly developed, addictive calorie blob of junk that's been made for you to try it and keep eating it.
Right.
Yeah, and I think everybody
that being said, you're not going to hear about some fantastic medication that's damn near free, you know.
Yeah. And I think those that watch the show, they get it. That's where they're watching the show. But I always tell people, all you got to do is go on to Netflix and watch the documentary Widowmaker. Yep. Right? The insurance companies will cover a $40,000 stent, but they won't cover a $300 preventative test that can prevent 99% of heart disease by detecting the calcium. So, dude, I mean, it's a fucked up world. It's a fucked up system, but it's up to us, and that's why we have shows like this, and you guys are taking control of your own health, because it's up to us to go out there and do it. I mean, everything that Jim and Jay and I do, I mean, we spend, I don't know, I mean, probably each of us spend $8,000 a year on tests and supplements that aren't covered. Right? That we take this into control. That's not even counting food. That we take control into our own hands, and then you got to take it serious. So, all right. So number 3, can taking creatine or eating such high protein diet cause false readings on your blood work regarding kidney function, such as GFR, BUN, etc. or BUN?
Yeah. You want to answer that, Jim? You want me to?
Go ahead.
It can and it does. I'll let Jim explain it too. Also, hard training, especially like training, if you're training the full body or you're training the legs or you're training the larger muscles, you are creating lactic acid and a bunch of other metabolic waste and byproducts from your body that, will increase scores, creatine kinase, I think, and a couple other, like actually liver enzymes, ALST and what is it, BLG or ALGT or whatever. I can't think of their acronyms right now, but all of those can be elevated from very high, and they're transient elevations, but they can be elevated from training. And then there's a lot of other things too, sex, orgasm. There's a million different things that you can do that can create what are called a false positive or a transient elevation.
That's why my blood work's always off.
Right. It's all that sex. Well, I think that's a question we have. So let's save that for later. But no, honestly, like, this is a really great question. Whoever asked it, I think Curtis asked this question. So good job, Curtis. I'll throw you a shout out. But we will see this a lot of times, and it's important that if you're not working with a smart progressive physician, which a lot of people, as we know, aren't, that you're informed enough to say to them, "Hey, doc, I just trained legs yesterday. What do you think?" And then if they just go, I mean, the reality is that it's very likely, and I'll let Jim, take the rest of this, but it's very likely that a number of things can cause false positives on your blood labs.
Yeah, everything Jay said, totally agree with. I had thought that almost every physician that had ever seen my blood work and seen an elevated liver enzyme or a creatine level, I said, obviously I work out. I did a workout yesterday, and they had all seen it, all said that was normal. I wish I could name the one person that I just had to deal with that did not know about that. But it's surprising to find that they're still out there. But yeah, that's totally normal, and almost any physician has seen it before, is familiar with it, and will be able to answer your concerns with it.
Yeah, agreed.
Boom. All right. Well, is there any concerns of getting the false readings of, should once in a while, like, you get it out of your system so you can get an accurate reading? Is there any negative thing that can come from those false readings?
The only thing is, and I always say this, and Jim has probably another answer, the only thing that's really important and critical, and Jim and I have actually seen this a couple times, is when somebody has a super high elevated white blood cell count. because that's usually indicative of an invader, some form of some pathology that is probably cancerous, or I don't like to say cancerous, but you've got some sort of a systemic infection that's massively elevating white blood cells. So when you see something like that, it's like go time, make sure you contact your doctor. Most other things, I mean, Josh, you've seen yours, you like your glucose has been super low. I mean, you can have low, and again, transient elevations or decreases in so many different biomarkers that there's no reason to get your panties in a wad. Jim and I have also seen guys, gay men who have had super high PSA levels because, they had sex the day before like that. And, some doctors who are amateurs, they freak out. Oh my God, we got to do a biopsy of your prostate. No, you don't, dummy. You got to do another one in about 4 days when everything, comes back to normal. So we see it a lot. But I think besides the white blood cells, Jim, is there really anything on there that makes you scream out loud, say, oh my God? I mean, I know probably if you have like super high homeocysteine or C-reactive protein, you're a heart risk, but I mean, it's not like you're going to die overnight with some of these things.
Well, there's a lot of things that definitely cause further investigation, and sure. I would say to leave that up with your physician, but slightly elevated liver values after a workout is very normal. If you did want to get a baseline reading, sure. Don't work out for 2-3 days. Go in and get your blood work. Taking creatine, though, will not give you any type of indication of a reading because creatine is processed just like protein. So that would be asking if you took 5 grams of protein the day before, would that raise your creatinine levels? And so it's processing out. I don't believe that that's a case of having excess. Well, I mean, maybe if you just took it and you had your blood drawn, but normally you're not going to see that on a blood work. As far as other things, when your physician sees something that's of concern, he or she will order more testing. The things that we look at, are things that we can control with diet and nutrition, and that's improving your blood work and, those things, glucose levels, all that stuff.
Love it. Yeah. All right. Okay. Question number 4. Have you heard of a supplement known as PGX? From what I understand, it is a fiber type supplement that helps control glucose and appetite. If you've heard of it, what are your thoughts on this?
So I'm familiar with it. It's glucomannan, Jim. You know what it is. It's an engineered fiber. It's actually the fiber that's found in Quest protein bars. And it's like an oligo fructocosinide or something like that, some engineered carbohydrate with a million different molecules and chains. It's probably, as we know, not good for you chemically when it breaks down. But there's like this, because it's a fiber ultimately, the carbohydrate content of that is not the same as 20 grams of fiber or 20 grams of carbs without fiber. But I still say the same thing about all these things is like, the chemicals in these things, I mean, we don't really know what they're doing long term. So if it's got 50 grams of carbs, but only 20 net carbs because of that, that engineered fiber, I still say stay away from it. That's my take.
Yeah, well, while Jim's doing his research, there, a quick follow-up question for you on that, Jay, is, because those bars are deceiving, dude. It'll say like, only, 4 grams of sugars, but then they have all these sugar alcohols. And I heard the other day that there's like 29 different types of sugars, or I don't know if it could be more or less, I can't remember the exact figure, but how they can hide it and just deceive people on this. What should people be watching out for? Is there such a thing as a good bar?
No, it's an absolutely great question. I'll let Jim finish it. But Jim and I, when we work with anybody, we tell people to stop eating protein bars. Okay, they're absolute horseshit. Almost all of them are made up. Again, remember, guys, we're talking about an industry that's wholly unregulated in the supplement industry. These guys can claim anything they want. I know I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus and start throwing names around because we're about to jump into the supplement space, but there's a lot of people that manufacture bars are being sued right now.
Yeah.
I won't mention one of the companies. Put 2 and 2 together. I already mentioned it. Hello. They're in serious trouble. So there's a lot of people out there manufacturing bars are not holding to label claims, and now smart people are suing them and say, hey, I had your bar tested and you're a scammer. So, I wouldn't, back to Josh's question, I would not touch. If I'm looking to lose body fat, I would not touch one of those bars. In fact, as Jim would say, and I know what he's going to say, he says a Snickers bar is better than most of those bars.
You must have heard that few times to recite that. But okay, so just looking at this PGX supplement, basically, yeah, there's a sugar substitute part of it where it's from the sugar alcohols in it, which are complete trash for your body. And it also, I guess you take a big enough serving, it expands and gels in your stomach. So you get a feeling of being full. Well, you know what else gives you a feeling of being full and adds nutrient-dense vitamins and minerals to your body? Vegetables. So this is a product, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend fiber from natural sources. This also has sugar alcohol in it, which I don't know if you've ever taken before, but if you take enough of it, you have major stomach intestinal disruption with the worst gas that you've ever dealt with in your life. Take it from me, and not a good story. But yeah, I mean, you want a fiber product. Metamucil is better than this stuff. Anything like psyllium husk, oat fiber, all that stuff is great. And when you add fiber to your diet, or if you add fiber to a carbohydrate meal, it slows down the digestion of those sugars. But we've already thought of that. Jack LaLanne's already thought of that. All the brilliant people have already thought about that, and that's why we recommend you eat vegetables. So a vegetable is basically carbohydrates that are wrapped in fibers. Anyway, that's my take on that product. As far as bars, I agree with Jay. Nutrition bars just aren't made right. There are some out there on the market that are good. Those are oatmeal based, but they're basically oatmeal and some type of nut butter. And so they make a block out of oatmeal and nut butter. Sometimes they'll throw some protein in there. But for me personally, the ratios are all off on the protein and carbs. So it's typically like a 40-gram dose of carbohydrates and about a 15-gram dose of protein. And so that just doesn't have anywhere to be in my diet. And for most people, I don't see it fitting in properly.
So the protein bars with the Reese's Pieces built in there aren't good for you? They're damn good tasting,
if you're gonna
dude.
do that, you might as well. Yeah, they taste great. You might as well just eat a Snickers bar, man, or your candy of choice.
All right. Okay, so for dieting purposes and watching carbs in general, there are these high fiber, high protein wraps. I will sometimes use to keep my bread fix. They always tout the net carb amount, which ends up being really low, like around 9 grams, because they subtract X amount of the actual total because it's fiber. Can we count the net carb total for dieting purposes, or does that not apply?
No, I wouldn't go by that. I would go by the total carbohydrate count, and that way you're guaranteed to know how many carbohydrates you're putting in your body and not kind of mess around with subtracting the fiber. Now, I say a lot of times with the bigger guys and the people who are consuming more calories not to count the trace carbohydrates in broccoli or Brussels sprouts or green beans. So, I mean, you can go back and forth with that rule, but we're talking about broccoli versus a wrap. So if it's a wrap, I would count the full carbohydrates. And I've used them too. I use the brown rice version. Just because it's not a flour-based product, and it's a lower glycemic or a slower releasing carbohydrate source. I've used those in the past with good luck, but I count it as I count all the carbohydrates on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've really honestly nothing to add. Those things, all those wraps are laden with chemicals, nitrates. I see people, I get that, Monica and I get that question all the time at the gym. Like, well, what about those low carb wraps? You can wrap them with turkey, or, they make them at most of the fast food restaurants now too. Have you ever tasted those things? They literally taste like cardboard with chemicals in it. So I wouldn't even touch that stuff. I mean, if you're really, if you're like, I can't give up bread, then just eat, the Ezekiel bread. Just get some of the the pumpernickel or the Ezekiel bread and eat that. It's a lot safer and more nutritious than that crap. Because again, it's all engineered. There's nothing legitimate about it.
What's and this isn't part of this question, but what about some of those organic flaxseed wraps that you'll see?
Here's the problem with all of those things. If you look at the bottom line ingredients, you're going to see monosodium glutamate. You're going to see some sort of gluten or wheat glue. You're going to see something that's just a byproduct of nothing.
Yeah.
Of just
crap. Some of them are actually pretty healthy. They have quality ingredients. However, when it comes down to the oils that are used inside,
right,
Sometimes it gets a little shady in there. So I would just say best practices, limit them in your diet if you are going to have one. And it's a fibrous one, a more fibrous one, hopefully not made with a wheat product. Just use them infrequently. But if you're stuck and you're not losing body fat, I would dump that first.
Cool. Okay, so next question. We're question number 6 here. How does the body determine where to shuttle the nutrients we get from food first?
Well, it depends on need. And so it depends on the caloric demands of the body at the time, what's going on in your metabolism. So, for instance, if you're sitting on the couch at night, let's say you didn't work out that day, all your glycogen stores are full, and glycogen is basically just how your muscle stores carbohydrates. All those stores are filled up, and you're eating a bag of chips. All the carbohydrates and calories that are coming in from that bag of chips isn't going to be used metabolically at all because you're sitting on the couch. You're not participating in activity, and your body's not really burning a lot of calories. There's not a lot of energy demands. And so you'll release insulin, and your body takes all that sugar and whatever you're eating from the chips, let's just say, or popcorn or whatever, and it's not just going to dump those calories out because your body's built for survival, right? And so it will take those calories as much as it can, and it will store it somehow, and it'll store it in fat, most likely under that condition. Now, if you're running on the treadmill and you're eating a bag of popcorn, most of that sugar will be consumed as metabolically needed to perform that activity. If you eat the popcorn after you ran or worked out, there's a likelihood that a lot of that sugar that you've eaten from the popcorn, or maybe not a lot, that's a relative term. Some of that popcorn that you're eating, the sugar from that will go to stored muscle and glycogen, perhaps a little bit to metabolism, as your metabolism is still probably raised. But the second that your glycogen stores are full and you've caught up on energy demands, it's going to be stored as fat.
Right.
So it really depends on, there's a lot of variables as to what the body's going to do with the nutrients that you take in. But that's kind of why we always preach about this low insulin lifestyle, right? An insulin controlled lifestyle. And so we start to identify the times that you need insulin or you need carbohydrates, and we plan around those, like around your workout. You're going to eat carbohydrates. We recommend pre and post workout. And then the rest of the day is literally going to be eating vegetables so that you're in a low insulin environment. And the nutrients that you're taking in, especially if you're not you're not in a calorie surplus, you're going to influence your body, or you're not going to influence your body to store fat. That's a long-winded explanation, but
Jim's answer is so good. There's really nothing to add. I mean, the only thing I would say is very, very quickly is post-workout, pre-workout, right? You still got to factor in, like, hopefully you know your body type. We constantly stress that. Are you an endomorph? Are you naturally fat, slow metabolism? Are you ectomorph, naturally skinny, fast metabolism? Are you the combination of both? Muscular guy who has, optimal genes and can process carbohydrates pretty quickly and efficiently. Knowing one of those three things is going to allow you to understand that answer too. So if you're an ectomorph or a mesomorph, meaning you're pretty optimal in burning calories, processing carbohydrates and minimizing your insulin signal, then post-workout and pre-workout, you pretty much know you can eat more carbs, and most of those carbs are going to be going for energy and glycogen restoration. Now, again, as Jim said, there's a little bit more science to that. If you're, a guy who's trying to gain weight, regardless of your body type, and your liver glycogen stores are topped off and your muscle glycogen stores too, then you got to be very sensitive to the amount of carbs you eat because it will go to fat deposition. But by and large, from a rough approximation, if you're an ectomorph or a mesomorph, you can eat carbs post-workout and pre-workout and pretty much assume they're going to be going to restoration of glycogen, which is, again, the storage form of glucose.
Awesome. So this isn't on here, but this is something I'm really curious about. When we're not moving, right? Like, let's say, for example, you're at home watching TV, or compared to being at home, like a lot of late nights, I'm out there building out back ends of websites and things like that late into the night. So, there's cognitive things going on there. Is your body, even though you're not really moving necessarily, but you have a lot of cognitive things taking place? Because there's times where, like, I feel like lightheaded almost like after a workout if my carbs are real low late at night. Like I feel like I have to like pop a few almonds or something just to fuel my mind. I mean, is there something to that too?
Well, especially the way that you diet too, and the way that you eat. So you're pretty low carb to zero carb from the time that you work out, right? And so if you're talking about nighttime, I mean, it's been what, 10 to 12 hours since you've probably taken the carbohydrates. Yeah, I mean, the brain runs on glucose. I think it's just a low blood sugar type deal that you're experiencing probably. I think that if you eat almonds, right, it's alleviated, or if you drink, something with sugar in it, it would be alleviated. The difference is it's going to be healthier to take in fats. You're not going to have an insulin spike, and the energy that you get from the fat is going to last longer than you would from a carbohydrate spike. So, in that situation, I would probably suggest that you eat some food to keep yourself going. And it sounds like that's kind of what you figured out to do.
Yeah, cool. All right, so next question here. How often are you guys sexually active? Jay, I'll start with you on this one, brother.
Boom, baby. Well, let me think. It really depends. On the weekends, I try to have sex twice a day. We try to carve it out in the morning and at night before we go to bed. During the week, dude, is like, it's a mania. Like, every other week, I have Monica's 14-year-old. So, I have 3 girls that have to get off in the morning. And, the 14-year-old is in high school freshman. She goes one way. And my daughters, the 8 and 6-year-old go the other way. So, I mean, it's like a circus. We try to get up. Sometimes it just depends. We'll try to wake up at like 4:30 or 4:45 and like have sex in the morning. But I'm not really a big morning sex guy. Monica will be okay with it. But, really, it's just as much as we can during the course of the week. But I would say on a regular basis, we have sex 4 times a week on a regular basis.
It's hard when those kids are knocking on the door, dude. It's
yeah, man. No, I mean, it's almost impossible. I mean, you gotta, and it's like you almost do have to calendar it, right? Like you got to know when there's a time to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess overall over the last 17, 18 years, 3 to 4 times a week is pretty average. If it gets longer than that, we both start getting a little weird. But, our basis is that's very important in our relationship. And so, whatever it takes to get it done, and we've had kids in the house forever. So, it gets challenging, man. But, luckily my wife and I are both interested and have a healthy relationship that way. So
yeah, I mean, and one other thing I would add too, Josh, is like, and you guys know this, but Monica likes to have do vacations, right? So we try to have one vacation a quarter where we go somewhere. And I think a lot of the focus of that is like, okay, we're going to have half the vacation, whether it's 5 days or 4 days or 6 days or 3 days, whatever. It's just going to be like us, in bed, me time, no computer, no texting.
Just fucking rabbits, dude.
Exactly. I mean, try to be. I mean, as we know, the entrepreneurial hustle is brutal. I mean, there's sometimes, the best intentions or plans are still waylaid. So, but yeah, I think that's normal. I think for people that are still attracted to one another, and hopefully you're in a relationship where you find yourself like that, I think Jim hit the nail on the head. I mean, 3 to 4 times a week is, livable. You're not going to get.
Like you guys do, man. There's always you gotta. If I don't know, for me, it's well worth any vacation expense to take my wife away
Absolutely.
from a hotel room and remind her why she married me. I mean, that's
wigs. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I love it, man. I mean, my answer to that is as often as my wife will allow. Right? So, which is,
gatekeepers, man.
And I'm one of these. Well, what's weird though about this, and I like this question because before I got into TRT, and dude, I wouldn't even pay attention. I was just so busy with life and business, and I literally just thought, like you guys always talk about, I just thought it was a season of my life. I got 3 little kids, I got all these businesses, and my wife would be like, dude, do you realize it's been like 3 weeks since you touched me? I'm like, what? Now if I go like 3 days, like I'm it's not a good place for me to, so those of you that are struggling with that, man, I mean, TRT is a game changer for that. And that's why we get so many guys message us. They're like, dude, you saved our marriage. We get so many wives messaging us that you saved their marriage with that. I mean, I think 3-4 times a week is healthy. And if you're not, definitely get your hormones checked. If you don't have that desire, it doesn't mean that your marriage is bad. Like, my wife's super hot, dude, you know, right?
Yeah.
I lost the desire, nothing because of her. I had way low test levels, and I just wasn't paying attention, and I had no idea we'd go 2-3 weeks. You know,
But isn't that awesome that you just said that? Because that brings up an amazing point, right? Like, if you're optimal physiologically, you have to have sex as a dude.
yeah.
So the belief system or the reality of your relationship suffering, you know, because you're not having sex with your wife, and then your wife seeks elsewhere, or your wife flips out, or, you know, anything can happen in relationships today. And let's face it, you know, we don't talk about this on this show, but let's just add it right now. I mean, the system is stacked against dudes. Okay. So a lot of guys just get beta. They deal with their low test. They don't want their wife going nuts on them, you know, chasing other dudes, or, you know, threatening divorce, or both. And that happens too. So guys just like pick the lesser of two evils, and they just go without sex. But you're right. I mean, Josh, that's a freaking awesome point. I mean, the truth is when you're optimized, man, you can't go 3 days without thinking like, I gotta bang the old lady. I mean, there's no way.
And it goes, how many women have we, you know, ran into or experienced, you know, where they just are like, well, I mean, I like the idea of it, but there's no desire.
Right.
Get your blood work done.
Oh man,
Please.
it's so true, man.
Get your blood work done.
There's nothing that'll save a relationship better when a man is like really desiring his wife, right? Because like physiologically, when you're balanced, you're like, man, I gotta tap it, baby. What's up?
Yeah.
And they love that. I mean, women love to be pursued. I don't care what your wife is like, you know, personality wise. They want you to pursue them. They want you to come after them. I mean, you know, not 4 or 5 times a day, but it's good to do that, man. It's very, very healthy and beneficial for your relationship for sure.
Yeah, I wonder, and of course there's no research on this, but I would be interested to see how many marriages end because of low T and male issues, because it's like, if I wouldn't have went and got checked and met you guys and got this optimized, you know, my wife was literally thinking that I wasn't into her. Yeah, right. I mean, she was getting, you know, whatever, and just think I was, and it wasn't the case at all, dude. It had nothing to do with our relationship. It was just, you know, whatever, dude.
And think about the personality changes. Like, most of the people that we talk to are the men that come in and they're low. You know, it's gradually taken away, so they don't really realize. But when they get back on, they're like, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm the person I was 10 years ago,"
right.
Or mentally. And so the person, you know, your wife, I mean, she's now dealing with somebody who's not the person they married anymore. You know, you're semi-depressed. I mean, not interested. I mean, your personality changes. It literally changes. You become a different you. And I will not be that guy.
I mean, Josh, you're right. I mean, like, I think about women, you know, your situation is exactly what I'm thinking about right now. Like, when you're a really driven, focused, determined guy running businesses, building empires, and you have low testosterone, that's not even a thought process. Sex it's not even an afterthought. Like you said, you literally go 3 or 4 weeks without even knowing that you didn't have sex. So, like, what is your wife thinking, right? Who's there like you? Again, you're the perfect analogy. You got 3 young kids. They're full of energy. They're insatiably difficult to keep under control. And your wife is like thinking, like, what the hell, is he cheating on me? You can imagine all the thoughts that can run wild.
Dude, it literally got to the point where it was almost like a fucking inconvenience. You know, for me, I mean, that's how it was. And again, yeah, like you said, all those thoughts, and it was nothing to do with her. You know, like within 2 weeks, I'm optimized, and boom, I'm back at it, dude. It was, you know.
I'm back, baby.
Yeah, love it. So, all right, man, we could that's a whole nother podcast on its own.
Right.
All right, so when is the best time to do an injection and ancillary meds like an AI prior to blood draw, especially if you're using a faster ester test blend like propionate?
You want to get that? Go ahead.
I would leave that up to your clinicians,
right,
to advise, because some.
Well, I don't know, Jim. Most of them.
Well, no, look. Well, I mean, let's face it. Some of them want you to have a specific protocol for the test, and some of them don't.
You're not going to mention names, right?
No, we don't need to, because there's plenty of them out there. But it doesn't matter. I mean, that's something that you have to talk to with your physician, because he may want you to inject and then blood draw at a certain interval. And that's really up to the person.
What about the doctors that want you to go without tests for 10 days so that you can crash your test levels and then get your blood taken?
Again, that clinician has a specific protocol, and that's the one that he wants you to apply.
So bad.
I would do that.
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, but I'll answer it in a different way. Because there's some people, so what we see a lot, and again, this is totally physician based, but what we see a lot is the physicians don't tell them when to take their shot relative to getting their blood work done. And then they take their shot in the morning and they go get their blood work done like an hour later or 2 hours later. And then it's way off the charts. And the doctor goes into a conniption for, fit and says, "Oh my God, we have to lower your test. This is crazy." And honestly, it's like amateur hour. And when you see this, but it happens, man. So, I will say straight up right now that if you're working with a progressive doctor, the likelihood of this happening is very minimal. But, how many people are working with progressive doctors on TRT? Not the majority. So if you're watching the show and and again, we're not doctors, but I'll just say this right now. If you're watching the show and you're trying to understand like a good, baseline level over a 7-day moving average, we're assuming you're getting 2 shots a week. Hopefully, maybe you're getting 1, but let's hope that you're getting 2. If you're trying to understand where you're at in the mid between peak and trial, if your shot is on Tuesday, you should probably get your blood work done on Thursday. Okay. So if you take a shot Monday night and then you take a shot Friday morning, and get your blood work done Wednesday afternoon or first thing Thursday morning. I mean, you want to just kind of get an idea so that you're not like super high. Because remember, right when and again, depending on the ester, but right when you inject, your test is going to be at its peak within 36 hours. That's just the way the half-life works. The ester cleaves, the molecular level. And then it keeps dropping half from half to half until it's, at its bottom. And over, like cypionate is at pretty much its molecular bottom by about day 6. And that's why guys who are on 1 injection a week feel like ass by midday 6, end of 6. And that's why we say don't ever allow that to happen and take 2 shots so that, by the 3rd and a half day or 4th day or whatever, and you take another shot again, you're back up. So you're never here and here. So it's important to understand that, like, depending on what your doctor's looking for, and they should be, in my opinion, they should be looking for like a good understanding of a baseline level over a 7-day moving average. Then, what we already said, is when you should take the blood work.
Yeah. And you want to go ahead, Jim?
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. We need like a red button or something. Just to add to that, I think the real answer there is, and hopefully your physician does too, is that you should do your blood work and your injections and your AIs on a standardized protocol. Yep. So that every time that you have a test, you can look back at the other test and start to correlate the data to see if you need to change something. So we've talked about this before about what do we look for in a physician. And I look for somebody that standardizes all that stuff. So when you first have your blood drawn on test, it's, it's going to be the day after or whatever. And that's the same way that you're going to have your blood drawn throughout therapy unless you change it for some reason. But the blood work, it's data, right? And, you're making decisions based on the data. And so those decisions are only as good as the data. And so I would remove all the variables. But
yeah. And I've been there, I've been on the same level of test. I've had it where they've had me wait 7 days, and I'm like low, like back into the 400s. It's still higher than when I started, but still really low. And then I've had it where I haven't been instructed, and I got blood work done the same day of the injection, and I'm like 1,400, even though it's the same level of test. So, I get where there's a lot of confusion there.
Right.
Okay, so I'm living proof of type 2 diabetes as mostly lifestyle. When I was at 350 pounds, my A1C was 8.5 and now it's 200. It is 5.1 to 5.4, or okay. So I'm sorry, was 8.5. Now they're 200 pounds. It's 5.1 to 5.4. Does that make sense? You follow me, or did I speed that up?
Absolutely.
Can you explain this to people that are type 2 diabetics right now? How can they wean themselves off of insulin?
Insulin controlled lifestyle. Simple as that.
Well, look, first of all, I don't want to advise anybody how to wean themselves off insulin without their physician's plan, but I will tell you this, as you manage your nutrition and start to exercise, your need for insulin will go down. And so with that, your physician should adjust and start to wean accordingly. So if you are on
the operative word, should.
Well, and that's again why you need to be proactive with your health. And if you're a person like this example who was a type 2 diabetic and then had to go on insulin, and he decided to start to change his life. And this person started diet and exercise, do all those things, and he brought his A1C down like that. I would assume that his physician would have seen the changes or have been informed on his visit. Hey, doc, you know what? I changed my lifestyle. I'm eating this, this, and this now. I've lost 40 pounds. My A1C is starting to improve my blood sugar. Do you really think I should be taking the same amount of insulin? And that should be the discussion. It would be ill-advised for me to start to say, yeah, hey, this is how to tick your insulin down. But with that in mind, changing your diet and lifestyle, you're going to reduce your need for insulin. And so I would work with your physician with those changes and show your physician the results as you go in and on your regular visits, and start to discuss with them how to wean yourself off of insulin.
The only thing I'll add to that, Josh, is, and again, and Jim's right, and I'm not here to disparage doctors, but I am so fed up and so frustrated at watching the general, standard diabetes physician out there in America who knows nothing, who literally has his patients or her patients eating fruit. Okay. I mean, and Jim knows this because it drives me crazy. I mean, my family has obesity in it. Okay. I got obesity in my family. My mom is morbidly obese. Her side of the family, they're all fat as hell. They don't give a shit. They sit on their ass and do nothing. They've never valued their health or done exercise or whatever. And they come from, a culture in the upper Northwest or Midwest of America where almost everyone back there is fat. Josh, you're from there. You know what's up.
You saw my fat pictures last week when we were down.
I saw Josh's picture when he was fat. And I was literally looking at him, and he looked like one of my uncles. I won't mention him because I know he watches your show. But it's crazy, dude, because like that part of America does not give a rat's ass about their health. No judgment. That's their life, their choice. But the truth is that a lot of those people are poisoned by horrific medicinal practice and recommendations. And again, I see these people. I talk to them. Why are you? I'll ask them, like, why are you eating 2 bananas in the morning for breakfast? Well, that's what my doctor told me I should eat. You have a 6.9 A1C level. So, I mean, again, we're dealing with a serious problem in America where the average doctor literally knows so little about nutrition, or maybe it's, as Jim said, cares so little because they're trying to make money by, pimping whatever pharmaceutical controls blood sugar, not metformin probably, that they don't even teach them like the basic principles of the insulin controlled lifestyle, which is like, hey, dude, you got diabetes. You got to eliminate carbs. You got to eliminate fruit. You got to eliminate simple sugar from your life. It just, honestly, it drives me.
But Jay, you gotta understand, man, doctors are human beings. A lot of them went to medical school when that pyramid that we were all taught was being taught.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse, dude. That's not.
It's not your doctor's
fault. You're 60 years old and you're a doctor.
It's not your doctor's fault.
You're not supposed to have carbs. Then you're a fucking moron.
It's not your doctor's fault. It's your fault.
It's not your doctor's fault. Of course, it's your doctor's fault. These people don't know enough, dude. They don't even know what carbohydrate is.
So, as a patient, you should go in like a blind little sheep, and whatever your doctor does, you go do it.
Jim, we already know, dude, that most people don't even know what the word fucking insulin means. They don't know what a carbohydrate is either. So if they go in there and they talk to their lab coat god, and their lab coat god tells them that they need to eat 5 servings of fruit a day, and he's 60 or 58 or whatever he is, then yes, it is the doctor's fault. It's not the dumbass who doesn't understand about nutrition. They're the ones that have been told for 50 years, their mom's above them and their dad's above them, that this is okay, that you can eat fruit when you're a diabetic. I'm telling you.
My point is, Jay, my point is that when you go to your doctor's office, you need to be proactive about your health. The guy's a human being.
I get it.
The guy practices medicine in a specific patient population. He's influenced by certain things. If you go to your doctor's office like a blind little lamb and he tells you to do something and you without question do it, you don't read a book, you don't look at a website, you don't Google something, then you kind of get what you deserve.
Well, that's 95% of baby boomers, bro.
We're not talking to those people. We're talking about the people who want to be proactive about
Why are we not talking about those people? They watch our show.
No, they don't. The people who are watching our show, the people who are watching our show are starting to become proactive about their health, and they want to educate themselves. That's
Okay.
not the
Good
same.
point.
Yeah.
Good
It's
Those
just
people, so those, sorry, Josh. So those people, like this guy, took his health into his own hands and started to change. Now that's the situation because his doctor probably doesn't see very many patients like that. So when you go in and say, hey, look, I was a diabetic for 10 years, I'm on insulin now, but I said, fuck it, I did some research, I changed my diet, this is what I'm eating, I've lost 40 pounds of body fat, I need to reassess how much insulin that you're giving me because my theory is that I need less. What are your thoughts? If he says, well, you're stupid, you need to start eating sugar again, well, go get another doctor. Go get somebody who says, that's amazing, let's reassess what we've done. We're going to do some more lab work and figure out what your new level. Let's titrate it down or see where you're at.
I wish I could say that Jim hasn't been to like Cincinnati or the upper Midwest, but he did live in Alabama, so I know he's not full of it. So that was a good, healthy debate. I definitely will agree to disagree.
Well, it's like Dr. Osborne's book. It's serious. He opens with it of like, look, you can't trust your physicians. You got to take it into your own hands. And yeah, I mean, it's scary, but that's the world that we live in. We would love to be able to trust them. I don't sit there and think that I gotta question my dentist when he's telling me I got a cavity,
Right.
but that's the world we fucking live in. It gets really scary.
Josh, we've talked about this. That's generational, right? Like our generation and younger are definitely more introspective and more up to speed. The baby boomer generation, and again, I'll classify as my dad, our dads, those folks definitely are less questioning of authority figures, whether that's the doctor, and again, I call it the lab coat god, the professor, the person they listen to on the news, the Dan Brokaw's, Tom Brokaw and Dan Rathers of the world. So it is generational and it is changing. And Jim is right if you look at it from that perspective. And I guess it just bothers me that so many of our elder generation today just take everything that the doctor says as like the gospel.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So, and first off, to whoever asked this question, I mean, the fact that he lost 150 pounds is absolutely mind blowing. So, congratulations on that, man. That's insane. What would be the negative consequences? Because we always talk about the fact if you don't take care of yourself, you might be to the point where you're dependent on insulin. Well, if you're weaning yourself off and your doctor isn't controlling that, and you keep you keep on insulin when your body doesn't need it. What are some like the reverse negative effects? Because that's something that we never really talked about. Like if somebody in this case that is losing that weight, their body's now not so dependent on it, but they're not being productive. Their doctor's not on it. I mean, what other effects can that have on your body? Kind of the opposite.
Well, insulin's a very powerful hormone, man. So when if this guy, let's just say theoretically, just as total theoretical situation, I'm not a doctor. I would work with your physician to wean on, but if you're losing body fat and you've adapted this low insulin lifestyle, or started to choose your carbohydrates wisely and intelligently, and you should already be controlling your insulin different, because most programs have, or I think most insulin therapy regimes are, you take your blood sugar and then you dose appropriately. And so if that's the case, or I'm thinking of one person in particular who's taking their blood sugar all day long and then dosing insulin appropriately, if you're eating less sugars and you're consuming less sugars, slower burning carbohydrates, you're going to be using less insulin because your blood sugar will be lower and you will dose yourself with less insulin. And so I know there's a lot of different protocols out there, but I mean, that would be the real answer. So if you're controlling your insulin dose by your blood sugar, you're going to start to experience lower blood sugar and you're going to use less insulin. Now that's without being on something like metformin or some other control drug like that throws a loop in it. But that's, I mean, basically that's what will happen. If you are still on a protocol where you're injecting 10 IUs or whatever twice a day, no matter what, then your high insulin levels will somehow dictate that you need more carbohydrates. And so you will experience a blood sugar crash somehow. You'll probably be monitoring your insulin throughout the day, or your glucose, and you'll have to eat more carbohydrates. And so that will deter your fat loss goals. So I don't, it really depends on the protocol, man. But a lot of diabetics, and I'm not a diabetic expert. I don't know, the treatment of insulin, what all the parameters are, and how many people are doing what. But the ones that I know are taking blood sugar readings, blood glucose readings, and then dosing their insulin appropriately. When they're eating healthy and they've been on a healthy regime and they're exercising, they're taking less insulin. When they're drinking and they're eating whatever, they're taking more insulin.
I'm of the belief, I'll just finish it, Josh, by saying I'm of the belief, and I'm definitely the minority in the world on this. I believe that anyone can be removed off of insulin with the exception of people that were born insulin dependent. So anyone who at some point in their life became a type 2 diabetic or some form of a diabetic after birth, meaning they were not dependent at birth, any of those people can be weaned off of insulin. It's lifestyle control. It's, as Jim coined the term, it's insulin controlled lifestyle. It's becoming cognizant of your body type, building muscle, eating the type of carbohydrates necessary for you to optimally fuel your body and life and mind. And it can be done. I don't agree with a lot of people in medicine that say that, that's not true. This person's pancreas failed or their chemoreceptors failed. You almost anybody. Now, there obviously, again, there's exceptions. If you're 70 and you've blown all your chemoreceptors, it's different. But if you're young enough and you decide to make a commitment to the insulin controlled lifestyle, you can actually wean yourself off of insulin. I really believe that.
Love it. So question number 10, why inflammation is the key in heart health over cholesterol?
I know who asked that question. That's a great question. Jim, that's right up your alley, bro.
Let me see. I mean, there's a couple aspects to this, and I don't know how deep we want to go, but basically inflammation is going to lead to damage and the disease process of your vascular system. And that depends on a lot of things, right? A lot of things can cause inflammation or attribute to inflammation of your vascular system. And a lot of times you can have a low inflammation environment and a healthy vascular system with a high cholesterol number. It's not really hand in hand. And there's a lot of data out there that supports the idea lately that cholesterol really isn't a good predictor of cardiac and vascular health as we once thought.
Right.
There's a couple different types of particles that make up a total cholesterol count. There's HDL, which are the healthy or good cholesterol, the LDL, triglycerides. There's even different size particles of LDLs. And most sophisticated blood testing methods now, like the one that Check has, will give you a complete breakdown of all types of particles of cholesterol, the different size particles, and the risk factors that go with that. That is a better predictor. The size of particles and the types of particles and the ratios, that's a better predictor of overall cardiac health than just the total cholesterol number. Furthermore, there's inflammation factors that you can specifically test for that are more of a key indicator to vascular disease and cardiac risk than total cholesterol.
So let me just take a step back though. Those that may not be familiar with what are you talking about, and what does inflammation when it comes to this mean? I mean, talk about you injure something and it gets inflamed. But what when it comes to your heart health, what would define that?
So go ahead. Well, I'll say, Jim. So inflammation is essentially, Josh, let's look at it in a bigger picture because you're asking a really good question and it should be understood by everybody what we're talking about. And Jim, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but inflammation is essentially everything that allows the disease process to occur in the human body, okay? Inflammation can come from plaque. It can come from arterial buildup, like Jim was saying, these particles and these molecules inside the system that from breakdown of free oxy radicals, breakdown from food, breakdown from just everything that happens molecularly inside the body can lead to inflammation, right? So if you're eating shitty and you have high insulin all the time, you got that insulin up and down, your chemoreceptors are on full blast all the time, eventually it leads to buildup of plaque. Your arteries get condensed, they get hardened, they get, all kinds of coagulants and crap inside there. It's like gunk. And that leads to inflammation. And that inflammation leads to all the processes, not just vascular. It's everywhere. It's like, what is atherosclerosis can be also in the arms. I mean, you could have plaque buildups here. It could be in your legs. You could have people get the blood clots like my mom. So it can lead to inflammation everywhere. So inflammation is what leads to all disease, cancer, heart disease, glaucoma, diabetes, Alzheimer's, type 3. That's what type 3 diabetes is. Remember, it's Alzheimer's and early onset dementia. So again, your chemoreceptors fail because you eat like shit and you don't exercise, you don't build muscle. And that's what leads to inflammation. So one other thing I wanted to add about that question, though, is that when Jim hit the nail on the head, that was a great answer, man, is that there are species of humans on this planet, I think it's the Sardinians outside of Greece, who have literally, like, by and large, total cholesterol levels on average of 450. Now, in the past, a doctor would see somebody with a cholesterol of 450 and push the easy button. Panic, panic, panic. They're going to die. But now they realize that, as Jim said, that's not just that's not the correlative factor ultimately in determining vascular risk. And there's two things that he didn't mention that I wanted to mention that are the two biggest understandings, and that is homocysteine and C-reactive protein. And those things are much more indicative of plaque and nasty buildups in your body and in your bloodstream that require further observation, which is the test that they do, the screening, the vascular screening that they do. Jim, what's the name of the test again that Doc does, that Brett Osborne does for the heart?
They package it differently.
Yeah, there's a lot of different tests they can do, but they can actually look to see when you have these super high elevated levels, like if you have blockages, coronary issues, and whatnot. So all of those things, Josh, are what inflammation is and ultimately leads to.
Well, you're right, Jay. Just to dummy it down a little bit or to make it easier to understand, when you have damage to a cell in your body or a group of cells, like your muscle, right? You sprain a muscle and your body floats in inflammation in there. And that's for a few things. That's kind of to tell you to stop using it. And it also is it's part of the repair process, right? And so almost anything that you damage, I mean, there's regenerative cells, but when you damage something, like when you tear some muscle fibers, it's replaced with scar tissue. And that's kind of how your body deals with it there, right? And so that can lead to complications if it's not taken care of. If you have scar tissue in your muscles, you're eventually going to lose range of motion and flexibility and strength and all the things if you don't deal with it. When your vascular system, when that starts to get injured on the inside lining from unfavorable sized particles and other factors and chemicals and all the things that influence that, it gets damaged and it gets inflamed, and the repair process isn't really the same kind of scar collagen matrix that we have in our muscles. It's scarring with the accumulation of cells on the wall, and then that leads to plaque accumulation. I mean, that's a really broad and please, if you're a smart guy, yeah, I know I left a bunch of stuff out, but I mean that's a good way to think about it. So when you start to have a complicated or a compromised vascular system, you're starting to lose blood supply, your body's ability to deliver nutrients and oxygen through all the cells in your body. And so that leads to a multitude of complications. And so as this cycle continues and you have all these things that are damaging the inside of your vascular system, it's responding with inflammation and the repair process and all the things that are bad for you, which eventually cut down on the flow and the delivery capability of your vascular system, then think about everything else. So if you're unable to deliver the same amount of nutrient-dense blood with oxygen and nutrients to all your internal organs, say, is your body going to be compromised overall? Yes. Is your health going to be starting to be compromised? Yes, because those internal organs in turn do all these other processes that keep your body running. And that's a lot of times when you see diabetics, especially advanced stage diabetics, as they age and their diabetes gets worse, they experience, their vascular system gets worse and worse too. It progressively starts to collapse. And that's why you've seen probably had somebody in your extended family or know somebody who started to lose feet, unfortunately, maybe arms, legs. Typically it's lower body, brain function starts to go, the eyes start to go. And that's all because their vascular system was compromised a long time ago, in this cycle of inflammation and compromise and lack of deliverability and functionability continues. And so that's kind of a long story. I hope it's accurate enough to understand and simplistic enough. But
yeah, just a couple follow-up questions there. I mean, I know, we've all been through the test. I don't know what is the echocardiogram or the ultrasounds on the hearts and the arteries, where you can get tested for this stuff, and that's stuff that we all do routinely to check out. And cool thing is, you guys are watching this, those tests are only a few $100. It's not like it's massive, expensive, hardcore test, to go out there and get this stuff checked and analyzed. But with that being said, is this all lifestyle? I know that you deal with this, Jim, daily in the OR and see it. You see this stuff firsthand. Is there any of this stuff, dude, that can be genetic or that isn't lifestyle? And if it runs in people's families and they're not, is there certain things that they should be watching out for with that?
Yeah, it is.
But let me
Well, we just talked about that on Sunday, but go ahead.
Yeah, let me give you an example. I mean, if you're genetically predispositioned to have cardiac disease, because let's say all the males in your family have died of heart attacks at 38. Well, you can either make that worse or better with lifestyle.
Right.
And so, does that mean you're going to die at 36 instead of 38? I don't know, but all I can tell you is, whatever genetic cards that you've been dealt, you can always try to make them better, man. You can always fight to make them better. And would that lead to a better quality of life or maybe a longer life? I mean, I'd like to think so, but hey, we might get hit by a bus tomorrow, right? But no matter what your genetic predisposition is, you can always make it better, or at least stack whatever odds you have in your favor by lifestyle, diet, nutrition, being proactive about your health.
Agreed. I mean, it's I can't answer it any better. I mean, my uncle, we talked about that at breakfast on Sunday morning. My uncle lived a healthy life, routine observation, echocardiogram, massive blockage, been exercising, taking care of himself, not eating, living an insulin controlled lifestyle. He was a college athlete, he was a runner. So yeah, there's definitely a genetic correspondent or correlation in a lot of people in life. But as Jim said, you can definitely lessen or minimize risk factors by living as clean as you can. But that doesn't mean that at some point, you could, because we've all heard the stories, right, of those guys who were in elite shape, dropped dead of a heart attack. So it's possible that genetics is the ultimate determinant sometimes.
Yeah, but even if you have an intervention of some type of surgical intervention, and is genetically predisposed, and you have surgical intervention, the recovery and the quality of life post surgery is going to be dependent on your nutrition and lifestyle.
Yeah, totally.
It's and so it really depends on what you want out of life. If you want a better quality of life, yeah, man, you're gonna be proactive and control your diet, exercise. You're gonna use the machinery you were given. If you're gonna be genetically predisposition for something, I would definitely I would know about it, and I would educate myself about it, and I would fight even harder to delay that process, or at least minimize that process. And then if it was intervened surgically or however, the back end of that, what does that look like? I would fight to have a better quality of life after that.
Right.
So for preventative reasons, because there's always the exception to the rules, but for most people, a lot of this stuff can be prevented, right? So and in addition to getting the blood work done, how often would you recommend people start looking at echocardiograms? Because that's really detecting the calcium buildup in the heart, which is the biggest key indicator, right? Is that
having a full heart workup? Yeah, it's kind of a general screening to see if your heart's doing okay. You can have testing, like we said, like calcium reads and all that stuff to kind of determine how far advanced your calcium buildup or your all that, or the condition of your vascular system is. But that should be done late 30s, or if maybe even earlier, if you have family history, for sure, man. I would work with somebody like a cardiologist and get a full heart workup done, and then let the test determine, or let his or her opinion based on his genetic disposition to when you're going to get that test done, or what the frequency is. Now on blood work, we're in favor of getting your blood work done at least once a year. Once you start getting older, then I would increase that. But blood work for us is a way to be proactive about our health. We look at the things that we can control, and then we try to improve that with nutrition, exercise, and supplementation.
Yeah,
love it. All right, so next question: if a person is trying to lose weight / body fat and has a limited schedule, what should they focus more on, cardio or strength training? Should they do equal amount of both if they are limited to 1 hour of workout time per day, 3 times a week?
So they should do 40 minutes of strength training and 20 minutes of cardio, right, Jim?
Yeah, but it depends what was the goal again, Josh?
Person is trying to lose weight / body fat.
Well, again, if you want to lose weight and you don't care about how much of it is muscle, I would reverse that, and I'd say maybe 40 minutes of cardio and 20 weightlifting, because you don't want to gain muscle, but we're always recommending resistance training for overall health.
They're not going to gain muscle.
Well, but here they said they want to lose weight / body fat, so I'm assuming they want to lose it the right way.
Right.
Yeah. Then I would agree with what Jay
I think
said.
Jim needs food, dude. This is an hour and 20. We're an hour. I think his insulin crashed and he just melted down on that question. That's
Well, the badass part is we just spent the last 36 hours together creating an amazing product for all you guys. Well, we literally break down all of this. I mean, from anything you can imagine with a diet to how to calculate these for your goals to the exact foods. I mean, even what kind of condiments to be using and coffee and to working out in every single movement. So that's going to be coming soon, which will answer a lot of these questions. You guys are going to be blown away with that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't have really anything to add to that. I mean, the only thing I'll say is, like, again, he has a limiting belief from the first question. I only have an hour, 3 days a week. Right. So we know that's not true. Anybody has more time. It depends on how focused and intentional it is and how important is your goal. If your goal means everything to you, you can carve out more time. But you can ultimately get, in great shape training 3 days a week. It comes down to diet. It comes down to training intensity. Obviously, hopefully scientific programming and understanding how you're supposed to train, eliminating ego and momentum from your training. But you can do it. I don't think you can lose maximum body fat, in 3 20-minute cardio sessions a week if you're only getting 3 40-minute weight training sessions. If that's all he really truly has, which we know that he doesn't. He has more than that. Look inward. But the reality is that I think purposely you can still get in great shape with just 3 hours a week of training. I mean, again, I train 4 days a week. Right now, I'm not doing cardio. I'm not doing anything. Jim and I are doing body paint in the end of October. I'm barely doing cardio on off days, which is 3 days a week because I train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So tomorrow morning I'll do cardio when I wake up. I'll meditate and do cardio. And that's it, and I'm not going to gain a lot of body fat or whatever by not doing any cardio, but I use cardio as a tool to get super lean, but I don't use cardio at all other than, to keep my heart good, 2 or 3 days a week on my off days when I'm just trying to do maintenance. So anybody can create a program for themselves. And then ultimately, remember we were talking about this weekend, if the ultimate goal is to live in a maintenance mode for 60% of the year, and get your physique to a level where this is where you find yourself, then, you can do this. But again, you have to design this and dial this in for yourself based on your body type, based on your goals, and based on your lifestyle.
Yeah. And I mean, how much of his diet, right? I know you're going to hate this statement, Jay, but I was training for a marathon at one point. And, I ended up getting injured, hurt my Achilles tendon really bad. But I remember the longest running session I got to was like 14 and a half miles. And I was tracking it, and it was like 1,600 calories burnt. I mean, I fucking ran for hours and hours, dude. 1,600 calories burnt. I'm like, when I got done, I was so hungry. I went up to Chili's, looked in Calorie King, and the burger was like 2,300 calories. I'm like, it literally, I mean, dude, you can be in the gym 6 hours a day, and one meal can counteract that. So, I mean, what do you guys say? Is it 90%
Well, I
diet?
mean, dude, all you have to do, Monica will love this. Hopefully she listens to this. I don't think she ever listens to anything I do, but I won't repeat what Josh told me the other day, but it's pretty fascinating. But the reality is you go to West Covina LA Fitness and you will realize that what you just said is par for the course for most people. They have absolutely no idea how to eat right. They train hard. I mean, there are a lot of people that do train hard. They go and they do these hour Zumba classes and they sweat their balls off. And they probably burn 1,000, 1,200 calories in an hour, which is a lot. It's a very effective form of cardiovascular training. And then you're right, Josh, go home and eat 3 slices of pizza for lunch.
Well, a lot of people would always ask me what it's like to be a bodybuilder, and I must lift weights for hours and be in the gym for 8 hours a day. But the reality is the hardest part, especially if you're a competitive bodybuilder and take your body to extremes. I mean, any meathead can throw down a pizza and go work out for an hour or two, it doesn't look anywhere near that way, like somebody who competes does. And the difference is the other 23 hours of the day, what you stuff in your face. And, an old cliche that I hate to use, but it's true, is abs are built in the kitchen. And, that's a lot of the things that we say is really taking out all this information, and it's just what it is. It's the secret, literally. And if you eat meat and vegetables and fruits that are natural and not processed, all your dreams will come true. It's that much easier. I mean, and that's a simple way. We talked about what? We talked about controlling insulin. We talked about my diet, my food choices, my exercise, all this stuff. You can get rid of all that knowledge and just eat meat and vegetables, and you're pretty much there. You can skip ahead of all this. But yeah, I mean, the caloric intake and tracking your calories and being cognizant of how much protein and fat you take in. Yeah, I mean, that's the secret. That's really it.
Yeah. And you know, too, I mean, so many people think dieting has got to be so boring. And we're gonna debunk that, man. We're coming out with the Jim and Jay CookBook with the best tasting damn shit you've ever had in your life. That's meets the meat and vegetables and the instant control lifestyle diet. So I'm excited to eventually launch that too. So, okay, last question. And I'm gonna have to spell this because I have no idea. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce this. But how important is understanding the FERROUS iron levels? Ferrous?
Oh, ferritin.
Okay. So how important is understanding the ferrous and iron levels in your blood to prevent internal organ oxidation and increase longevity?
So I'll jump in real quick, Jim. Let me look up the guy's book. So I have a really good friend that I do podcasts with named PD Mangan. And he's written a book recently, and I'm pulling it up real quick here. It's about that. And we did a podcast on it. Hold on one second. I'm just pulling up his books right now. Here we go. I want to make sure I get it right. He's got so many damn books. Wow. Here we go. Where is it? He's writing too many books. I'm trying to find this book. I can't find it, of course. Right here, Dumping Iron. Sorry, how to ditch the secret killer and reclaim your health. So this is a very, very new, not new, but it's a very known, a new phenomenon for doctors to understand this, but it's been understood at the elite levels that a lot of people overconsume iron. And, pans, cooking old frying pans or steel skillets or pans. And then what happens is that the iron doesn't clear the body. And so, you get into your 40s and you've got like a ton of iron still in your body. Now, the easiest way to get rid of this iron, and the iron oxide and all that stuff on your blood is by doing regular phlebotomies. Obviously, if you live the lifestyle that we preach and you're on hormone optimization, getting your blood work done 2 or 3 times a year, that can also help to alleviate it. But let's face it, the average person is not doing that. And they're eating a lot of, pan-fried foods, skillet stuff, and they have just too much iron in their body. And that book talks about the risks that too much iron in your body can lead to. And again, it's the exact same thing that we always talk about and preach, which is the diseases of aging. It leads to inflammation. So you should understand, and to the gentleman's question, you should understand the level of ferritin in your body. It's a very simple test. Again, we're constantly stressing, know your internal biochemistry, know your biomarkers, get your blood work, go to check. Okay, check.com/TRT Revolution. Get your blood work done. Do it once, do it twice. If you're in your 50s, you should be doing it 3 times a year because these things are critical to understanding your internal biochemistry and really maximizing your life, right? I mean, once you get to 50, you're at the halfway point, so to speak, mathematically. So understanding these things is only going to allow you to live optimally, at a better level as you age. And I'm telling you, man, at 50, you got to understand your iron levels. Again, a lot of guys have high hematocrit. Again, I don't want to get too esoteric. This is all discussed in the book. It's all discussed at, if you do use check, it's all discussed with you in person with the doctor or the physician's assistant over the phone and in person. But high iron in the blood is a very, very high risky endeavor, and you've got to address it and understand and be aware of it.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I forgot the guy's name already, but that book is incredible. And if you really want to explore that specific variable of your health, that's the guide, that's the resource. But that's kind of picked up when, again, Jay hit it on the nail on the head. When you're doing regular phlebotomies and you're getting your blood work done, that's something that's identifiable. But yeah, that's an important factor. I mean, that's a great question. That's a deep question, actually.
Yeah, I think the guy that asked that question is a doctor, so of course.
Well, did you guys read that link I forwarded you about metformin with the 90-day blood draws to increase the ferritin? Is like they're like at least that link is like this is the anti-aging kind of like
Well, no, but I mean, think about it. It makes sense, right? Because again, what is metformin doing? It's clearing the metabolic gunk and byproducts from your system. It's clearing it from your bloodstream. It's suppressing the insulin, which is allowing preventing the inflammation from building up. It also, as we know, is neuroprotective. So it's also in the brain. It's clearing out the gunk from your brain, from your neurotransmitter pathways. So now you're also removing the iron at the same time metformin. So yeah, I mean, that's like state of the art, dude. That's like the latest and greatest stuff. And again, I won't mention his name, but great question. And we appreciate you asking that, but that's the kind of stuff that you're going to get with Checked. I mean, right? I mean, because that's the kind of stuff that they do, by evaluating your blood, every 3 or 4 months and like making it automated and making sure the process is done. And that's another thing too that we don't talk about. The average doctor, age management or not, as Jim always says and Josh echoes, is they're not paying attention to that. You want to work with somebody that will automate this process, that will pound you with an email or a text message at 90 to 120 days when your ass has forgotten about it and says, hey, dude, it's time for your blood work. You know what I mean? And then they call you and pound on you until you do it, and that's what you need. You need somebody who can manage and regulate, your life processes so that you don't have to worry about it, because we're all busy people.
Yep. Love it, man. All right, well, that's all the questions that we got for today. So those of you watching and listening, as always, thank you guys for being here. Any questions that you have, shoot us an email to JimandJay@gsdmode.com. We'll do everything we possibly can to get those questions answered as soon as we can. We get blown up a lot of questions. If a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks goes by and we haven't heard a question, don't stress. We're doing everything we can to get to all these great questions. But make sure to shoot us an email. Jim and Jay, man, I appreciate you guys being here. I know it's always late on the East Coast time, man. So really appreciate you making this happen, man. Truly an honor. And those of you watching, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to be here. We appreciate you guys.